Hi there, and welcome to the Chaotic Classroom. This video is aimed at grade 12 learners studying the CAPS syllabus for life sciences. And in this video, we are going to do some problem walkthroughs for dihybrid crosses, which means that you should have a little bit of a background on what a dihybrid cross is and how they work. Now, when we start having a look at these types of questions, I have some tips that I think that you'll find useful when you approach these questions. Step 1 will be to read very carefully. They're going to throw a lot of information at you, and you're going to have to read very carefully to make sure that you understand exactly what's going on in the questions. Step 2, you're going to use 2 different color highlighters or 2 different color pens, not on the answer paper, but on the question paper. That way you can highlight your 2 characteristics in 2 different colors. Step 3, you're going to have to keep track of the words like genotype and phenotype, because if you're under stress in a question paper, they're going to seem very quickly, they're going to seem the same. So you're going to have to keep track of words like that. And lastly, you're going to have to remember that a parent always has 2 letters. So not just 2 G's and 2 H's, okay, but 2 of the same letter, while a gamete only has 1. So sometimes they'll combine different topics like using the phenotype of the gamete or the genotype of the parent. And that's why you're going to have to go back to step 1, which is read carefully. Now, our first example comes from paper 2 in November 2018, and they start us off with some multiple choice questions, which are always tricky. So let's have a look at it. Step 1, let's read carefully. In a certain species of rabbits, body color is controlled by 2 alleles where black is dominant to white. So already there we can highlight black and white with our 1 color. Now we're using 1 color to highlight both of those, even though they seem like they're 2 different things, because we're going to look at body color there. And then when we look at the second part, ear shape is controlled by a 2nd gene. The allele for wide ears, then we're going to highlight that one, is dominant to the allele for narrow ears. So now when you just glance at this, you can already see, okay, so I've got body color, which is 1 color, and I've got ear shape, which is a different color. If this is confusing to you, if you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself, you can, for example, say, okay, I'm going to highlight the ear shape in the same color as the genes for that, and then body color I'm going to highlight in the same color as the genes for those. So now we get to the actual questions. Question 1.1.8. What is the possible genotype for a black rabbit with narrow ears? So now we're going to have to do some thinking. Okay, first of all, they're saying black rabbit. So we now know that black has got a capital B. We don't know about that 2nd letter, because that could be a capital B or that could be a small b. And if it's got narrow ears, it means it has to show the recessive characteristic, which means it has to have 2 of the small letters. Now we know what the rabbit looks like. We are already very aware of the fact that we're going to be asking about genotype. So genotype. And now we're going to eliminate. So if we have a look at option A doesn't work because of that capital letter E over there. So A is out. Option B doesn't work because there's no capital B. So B is out. Option C, again, we've got a capital E over there that's throwing things out. Option D works because we've got our capital B and we've got our 2 small letter e's, which means the answer is D. Then we have a look at question 1.1.9. What is the possible genotype of gametes? So there's our words we have to be careful for. Genotype, gametes, produced by a white rabbit with narrow ears. So let's have a look. First of all, the moment we're looking at a gamete, it means that option A is out, because that is a parent, it's not a gamete. And if we have a look at a white rabbit, now a white rabbit is going to have 2 small b's because it's showing the recessive characteristic, and narrow ears means it is showing the recessive characteristic for ears as well, which means that option C, which has got capital B's and capital E's in there, is out. And the same goes for option D, because there's a capital E over there that's confusing things. So that is out. And remember, when it comes to multiple choice, everything in that line has to be correct for that option to be a correct answer. So our answer here is B. Next up, we're going to have a look at a paper from 2019. Now this will be the June paper. And in this one falls under question 3.2. And they're telling us, in holly trees, red fruit is dominant over white fruit. So again, let's take our highlighter and highlight red fruit and white fruit. And spiny leaves are dominant over smooth leaves. So then we're going to have the leaves a different color. The Punnett square below shows the possible results of a cross between two individual plants. The genotype at X is not given. Now, we can already guess. The moment they say the genotype at X is not given, then their first question is pretty much going to be, give the genotype of X. So let's work that out. Now remember, with the Punnett diagram, we are taking the parent from here with the Punnett diagram. Now remember, with the Punnett diagram, we're taking the gamete from here and the gamete from here, and there where the two meet, that is going to be where we're going to find the offspring. Now remember, there's different ways that you can write this, but there's ways to get marks and then there's ways to lose marks. What you don't want is you don't want to write it as a RL, even though you have just put them together, because this shows that you don't actually know what's going on here. What you want to do is you want to put the two R's together and you want to put the two L's together, because that shows that the two R's go together and the two L's go together and that you understand that. Now you also have to be careful not to do the two R's with a space and then the two L's, because that kind of looks like a gamete and not like an offspring. You also don't want to have anything in there like a slash or a comma or anything like that. That is going to definitely cost you marks. So the correct answer here would be capital R, capital R, capital L, capital L. Then we have a look at the second question, B, phenotype of the parents. Ooh, and this is a tricky one. Why? Because here they ask for genotype of X, but in the next one they're asking for phenotype. And it would be so easy to kind of just go, oh, I can see the capital R's and I can see the capital L's and just give that as an option. But that's not what they're asking. They're asking for the phenotypes of the parents. Now, first we're going to have to figure out what is their genotype before we can figure out what is their phenotype. So this is definitely not an easy question. So let's have a look. If we look at the parent that is here at the top, you'll see that we've got a capital R and a small r. So we know that parent 1 will have a capital R and a small r, and that if you look at the L's, capital L and a small l. So capital L and a small l. And then if we have a look at the one here by the side, same story. Capital R, small r, capital L, small l, which means that the parent's genotype looks like this. But that's not what they asked for. They asked for the phenotype. So now we're going to have to look. And if we look at the phenotype, we'll see that the fact that there's a capital R means that they will have red fruit. And the fact that there is a capital L means they will have spiny leaves. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what the 2 marks will be for. 1 mark for the red fruit and 1 mark for the spiny leaves. Now in question 3.2.2, this one is a tricky one. Why? Because now suddenly they're throwing you with math. They say, in a population of 128 plants, how many plants with red fruit and smooth leaves are expected from the Punnett square above? And then they want you to show all the working. So now we're going to have to first figure out which one of these plants are red and have smooth leaves. Now if we go back to the original one, we'll see that red fruit means capital R. Okay, so let's take our highlighter Let's take our highlighter and we're going to highlight everywhere we're going to see a capital R. So there's one, there's one, there's one. And we do that very quickly because we don't want to waste time on this. And then remember, we have to go back to our previous question because X is RRLL, but it's capital R, capital R, capital L, capital L, which means that one's definitely also got red fruit. And we want the one with the smooth leaves. And smooth leaves is the ones where have only 2 small L's. So let's go and find those. There's one over there, and there's one over there, and one over there. That looks about right. So we've got 3. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Now that's important information because that means that we have 3 out of the total 16, which we are going to multiply with 128 because that's how many plants we're going to get. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the reasons why you rock up to the exam with a calculator, because then it's easy to just punch those numbers in and get you to the answer of 24. And you're going to get marks for the 3 out of 16, for the multiplying by 128, and then for your final answer, which is why it's important again to show all your working, because if you just wrote down the number 24, you would have gotten 1 out of 3. Let's have a look at question 3.2.3. The farmer wanted to produce plants with only white fruit and spiny leaves. Give the genotype of the plants that he should use in the cross. Again, there, very carefully, we're looking for genotype. So let's have a look at it. The first answer is the most obvious one, and if you have had a little peek at the memo that comes with these question papers, you would have noticed that. If we're looking for one that's only white fruit, so then we're going to look at the one that's showing the recessive characteristics, so 2 small r's, and spiny leaves. Now remember, with spiny leaves, it shows that's the dominant characteristic. So we're actually looking for pure breeding plants, which means they're always going to give him the white fruit and the spiny leaves. So this would be the more correct answer. But sometimes after some discussion on the question papers, they will add an additional answer. Now you have to be careful of these additional answers, because additional answers are not a guaranteed they're always going to accept them. Because sometimes those are added later on after discussion with the examiners and everything like that. So if you ever see an answer like this where they give you the first answer and then the second one, the first one is the answer they were originally looking for. That's the one that they're going to show you the best thinking in. The second one, sometimes they accept it, sometimes they don't. You're never going to know. So the first one is your guaranteed marks. Then we look at paper 2 in November of 2019. And this one is in question 1.5. And there they say, there's variation in the characteristics of fur color and fur texture in cats. So that's already our 2 things. So fur color is going to be one color in our highlighter, and fur texture is going to be a second highlighter. Okay? The table below shows the allele that controls these characteristics. So there's texture, and there is color. And then they give us the alleles. The Punnett square below shows the inheritance of these alleles in a genetic cross. So there's our Punnett diagram, and as you can see, we've got X missing. So that's probably what they're going to ask us at some point. So let's have a look at the question. Name the dominant phenotype for fur color. Now again, carefully there, phenotype. In the next question as well, they're looking for phenotype. So let's have a look. Dominant phenotype for fur color. So we go back, we find fur color, we find our dominant characteristic, and then we find our phenotype, and the answer we write down will be black. And that will get us a mark. Then the recessive phenotype for fur texture. So again, we go back, we find our recessive characteristic, and then we highlight the characteristic we're going to be looking for there, which is smooth. So we go and We write down the answer smooth. And then we make sure that we get our marks there. And then here comes the expected question. Give the genotype of offspring X. So let's go back. And again, remember, in a Punnett diagram, one set of chromosomes are going to come from the one parent, and the other one's going to come from the other parent. So we basically just have to put these two together. And as you can see, both of them are small b and a capital R. And then our job is just to put the two small b's together and the two capital R's together for an easy 1 mark over there. Then our next question, sneaky, they just asked us about genotype. Now suddenly they're asking us of phenotype of the female parent. Now, if we look at this, the female parent, so let's go find us, there we go, there's the word phenotype, female, and the female parent is giving us only one type of gamete. So the female parent would have been small b, capital R, but that's not what they asked. They're asking for the phenotype. So then we have to go and see. A small b would give us white, and a capital R would give us rough. So that would be white and rough. And that is what the 2 marks are going to be for. 1 for white and 1 for rough. And then in question C, again sneaky, now they're asking again for genotype. Can you see how they bracket the phenotype in between the two genotypes? That's where that reading thing is going to come in very handy. So genotype of the male parent. Now if we have a look at this Punnett diagram again, we'll see that the male parent's got a capital B and a small b. So let me write there, capital B and a small b. And there is a capital R and a small r. Capital R and a small r. And then that's going to be for 1 mark. Easy peasy. And then the last question, which question 1.5.3, state the phenotype that all the offspring of this genetic cross have in common. So now we're going to have to go and have a look, and I'm going to erase some things here so that we can just see what we're going to have going here. What do they all have in common? So let's take our highlighter again. And we're going to have a look and see, okay, do they all have capital B's in common? Okay, and the answer is no, because that one over there doesn't have capital B's. So it's not going to be a black fur. It's not even going to be white fur. So let's have a look at fur texture. Are all of them going to have the rough fur in common? And we can see, yes, there's a capital R, there's a capital R, there's a capital R. And if we worked out our genotype of offspring X correctly, there's our capital R. But remember, they're asking for phenotype. They're not asking for which allele, they're asking for phenotype. And that phenotype will be, let's go back again, rough fur. So then we just have to spell the word correctly, and then off we go. And that is worth a mark. I hope this helps. Thank you for visiting the Chaotic Classroom.